So I'm subscribed to Locks and Loaded on YouTube, and I've been watching the brother for a while. When I remember when he only had like 1,000 subscribers, something like that. I don't know how I'm gonna address this, but okay. Here's what it is. So Locks and Loaded, he's been posting up videos. He's very much active in the NFAC. I'm sure many of you through my channel are aware of his channel because I posted a number of his videos on my channel numerous times. Right? But this is the part that gets me, right? And I've seen this with the NFAC, and maybe they're unaware of some of these community issues that we have. They're so focused on white supremacy that they're unaware of these other issues that are going on in the background. They're not in the conversation. They're focused on some other stuff, or they operate, only in, their Hotep circles, or, their, pro-black circles, where everything is just Afrocentric and, red, black, and green. And like, that's their world and that's how they operate, right? Which I have my own issues with that world as much as I support, Locks and Loaded. I have my own issues with that world because typically that world operates in a lot of broke dustiness. Typically that world is not about, black people controlling the economic landscape of their community. They're not about business. They're not about, networking on that level in terms of vertical structure because, everything is just too Eurocentric, for them. And so what brought me to make this video is Locks and Loaded posted a picture of his girlfriend. And I know he's discussed his girlfriend before. She's, one of the few women that are a part of the NFAC organization. But I've seen plenty of women that are a part of the organization. And see, this is where the black community as a whole, like the whole collective of the black community, everything that makes the African American black diaspora, where, we're just confused as a people. And there's too many factions and there's too many people going off in other directions. And I understand the arguments from both sides or all sides. I lean more towards one side more than the other, or I am on one side, more than the other. But this is where we never seem to have these conversations. And the problem is when people get up and get in front of the cameras, that illustrates, a representation of the community that maybe not everybody agrees with. And some people will say, well, nigga, if you all want to be represented in such and such a way, why don't y'all come out here, because we out here putting in the work and all that stuff, right? But here's the issue, right? So Locks and Loaded has his photo of his woman, in the march. She's kneeling down, got the rifle. Y'all can see all the picture in the background. Okay? And this is Locks, and Loaded. Right? So he's got his girl there, and then he puts up a post talking about my black queen. And I'm like, here we go with the the Afrocentric rhetoric, right? Which, at face value, like this is what makes it so difficult to talk about this conversation. Okay, at face value, people look at it like, yeah, this is a black man and he's not colorist and he's bigging up his black queen, da 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 da. But he got her on the front line. Like, show me where the Boogaloo Boys got they white women with rifles out there on the front line. I'm not saying we haven't seen any pictures of white women with rifles, right? You've seen that at Kent State. You know what I'm saying? You see that at Terran Tactical, right? Right. So it's not like white women don't shoot guns or white women can't get down, but the optics of it, white men make it known that we as white men are handling, business or protecting whatever. We as white men, not white women. They're home taking care of the kids and the family and all that stuff. But when it comes to these black militant groups, and this is the absurdity of a lot of the the pro-black groups and the Hotep and the red, black, and green and all that other stuff, right? Because you'll get the women that'll say that these groups are sexist. These groups are sexist. But then you'll see black women out there, fist in the air, with the rifles out there in the streets. And then there's even more confusion that comes into play because then, again, the colorist crybaby camp, right? They'll sit there and talk about how black women are out there protesting, they in the streets, and then they'll take, these women who are with their Hotep or pro-black men, and they're in a relationship, and she's out there on the front lines, and that's cool for them. That's how they orient, right? But because they're in front of the cameras, black women and the colorism crybabies, they'll go over there and they will try to make an argument and say that that black men like 50 Cent and his colorist statements, or Exotical statements, or Lil Wayne, or whatever other colorist brothers that exist are making black women mules and out there on the front lines when they don't cherish and honor black women and put black women on a pedestal. And I'm like, Locks and Loaded ain't on that shit. Why are you conflating two different groups of men? The brothers that are on that Hotep, black, white, red and green, white and green, and everything, they don't fuck with white people like that. They date black women, only sisters, and everything else like that. That's what they date. They not out there, hopping the fence all over the place, right? So the argument about, black men, they got black women out on the front lines and being warriors and carrying guns and all this other stuff, but they won't marry them or they won't wife them I'm not seeing that. Again, they operate in their Afrocentric world. They're not operating on, everyday black people shit. The middle of the roaders, as Amos Wilson said. They don't operate on that. So to try to label what's going on with the Afrocentric types, and pin, some sort of inconsistency, on what the middle of the roaders are doing, or vice versa, I think is bullshit. But I have to say, nonetheless, that, I still don't think it's a good look. I still don't agree with the idea of black women standing out there with rifles. I'm not saying that black women can't know how to use rifles, but I'm saying, why are they really out there? Just the other day they had, some guy get shot in the stomach. 3 people got hit because of a negligent discharge. I don't know whether a woman was involved or not, but I'm saying 3 people got hit. When you talk about combat, women don't have any place on the battlefield. I'm sorry, they don't. If that's too sexist for you, if that's too Eurocentric for you, you know what I mean? Well, deal with it. I don't agree with the idea of women being out there on the front lines. I just don't. And to me, when we're talking about the patriarchy and whatnot, and again, that word is loaded and people want to say it's Eurocentric and this, that, and the third, I'm saying, again, you don't see the white women out there with their rifles. They may be out there protesting or marching or whatever, or standing side by side to the protesting white men, right? Because we've seen these groups, they have white women at home that support them and whatnot. But notice what I said. Most of them are at home. They're not out there protesting. And when you get the only black men that got the balls to go out there and march and protest, and they're on they're a different faction of the black community, and they on some other shit, and they got black women on the front lines, and then here I come with the criticism. You know what already going to be what's going to be said about me. You already know the dismissive shit that's going to be said. Oh, well, see, nigga, you coming over here with them Eurocentric standards. See, so I'm bringing in standards that they don't believe in. So what I got to say is I'm already a coon, Uncle Tom, bootlicking Negro, just for saying that I don't think black women, oh, brother, you ain't coming in here disrespecting our queen. So they got like a whole different orientation. Again, as a middle of the roader, I do have a problem with black women being on the front lines. I do. I don't think that's their place. I don't think they have any business out there. I would rather just see black men out there. You know what I mean? And then posting, like, I don't know, just posting the shit. And then, you got You got 50 million factions in the black community that all interpret the shit the different ways. You know how the colorism crybaby's going to interpret it. You know how they going to interpret it. And see, ladies and black men, they want us on the front lines, and they got us on the front lines, and they don't honor us. And at the end of the day, they secretly want a white woman. Da, 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 da. Again, conflating two different populations of men. I don't like the idea of black women being on the front lines. Not just for the optics reason and the political purposes, but, again, it's like on one side, you'll have somebody saying, oh, you bring in Eurocentric standards, over here. Then on the other side, you got people who will say that, well, you don't see the white man out there, with his white woman, out in the streets, right? And then you'll have the other side say, well, we don't define ourselves by what the white man does. And then I'm saying you'll have even sisters come out, and I'm saying some of them may be feminist, other ones may be, the other type of feminist, right? Where it's like you get the feminists that'll come through and they'll say something like, they're not even feminists. They're like women who like how I'm put this. Some of these women that are claiming hypergamy camps are actually feminists, and I've talked about that before, where they'll point out a black woman being on the front lines and black men throwing her on the front lines, to argue against the idea of black patriarchy, meaning that there isn't a black patriarchy, or there isn't a black patriarchy, or that the patriarchy that exists in the black community is one that is fucked up because of the way that it's oriented, where it will put black women on the front lines, and they will cite photos like what Locks and Loaded has. And say, look, see, this is how black men do. They put black women on the front lines, and then talk about how they want to date up and be on pedestals like white women and all that other shit, right? Then you got the other side, which is the other side of Afrocentric black feminists who do exist. And they'll come with this shaming and you must refer to them as a queen, and they see themselves with guns as something that's empowerment, which to a degree even I can respect somewhat, because I'm like, actually that is real empowerment, not this fake ass intrinsic value, womaniverse magical bullshit that a lot of these other women talk about. You see what I'm saying? Like real empowerment for a woman. Like the greatest equalizer between a man and a woman is a firearm. Okay, a woman who competently knows how to use a rifle, a black woman who competently knows how to use a rifle, is not a vulnerable, weak woman in a situation where she's confronted with a white supremacist or somebody in the Ku Klux Klan or something like that. She has just as much of a chance to shoot him as he has to shoot her, right? So I do recognize the true empowerment of, firearms ownership in the hands of women. I just don't think that is something that needs to be promoted. It's not something that you need to put on Front Street, It's like, if you have kids, you teach them how to, use a firearm, or not to touch it unless in the case of an emergency. Teach them how to unload it, take the curiosity away, make sure they, sure that they're competent. But you don't then say, hey, take this gun and bring it to school for show and tell. You don't say that. You know what I mean? And so, and again, we're like stuck in this place between, no, we don't operate like Europeans. We're Afrocentric. The black woman is God. She's a queen and she carries guns and she's out there fighting with us and da 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 da. And again, I don't know what percentage of the hoteps operate on quote unquote patriarchy. I don't even think it's a discussion that they try to have. I just think, both groups sit around and they kind of stroke each other. You know what I mean? They kind of they black king, this, that, and the third. And then when a black man wants a black woman to do something, and in order to not sound sexist, he throws, baby love and queen on top of what he's trying to get her to do. And then she kind of calms down, and then she goes off and does it. You know what I'm saying? Oh, my black queen, blah, 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 da, 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 da. Can you do this for me? And then she goes off and reluctantly does it because he said it nicely. You know what I mean? But they not trying to have these, type of conversations that we having over here about, why it's important for men to be head of household and be the breadwinner, and so that their sons, recognize, that, this is what men do in a community, because the whole survival of the community is predicated off of the foundations that the men lay, how they work with one another, their networks, what they're building, the legacies and generational wealth that they're creating. But see, when you get into these Afrocentric circles, they don't operate on that. They operate on like the 50-50 model, hypothetically pulled out of their ass, because they don't even know what was going on in Africa. But this is like that Kwanzaa type of shit where black people try to, create this sort of, Wakandan fantasy world of egalitarianism. And they try to operate, off of that. And I'm saying, hey, if that works for them, that works for them. Do I think that that's the proper orientation for the whole collective of the community? No. And I'm saying you're always going to have this sort of frustration and battle going on when you have like 50% of the community oriented in that way and then 50% of the community oriented in another way. I mean, this is the same issue of the black people who grew up in the burbs and how they were oriented versus the black people who grew up in the inner city and how they are oriented. I guess the best policy is for everybody to just stay in their lane, right? That would be the best policy. But see, the problem is, depending on who gets the spotlight, who gets on the microphone, it's like whatever black person is in people's eye, they end up being the face of the black community and kind of dictate how shit goes down just by sheer example, because we don't have, our own media. I mean, Kevin Samuels brought up an excellent point about how, black women, are the ones that really control, these narratives that you see on the little bit of black TV shows that do exist. I mean, these shows do not cater towards black men. They cater towards black women. All the executive producers are black women. All the people that run these networks like OWN and whatnot are black women. And yet they don't go up there and show, traditional patriarchal black families. Like, they say that this is what they want, right? But yet they don't actively promote it, even though they have the power to do so. They don't actively promote it, even though they claim that ultimately that's what they want. They're too busy promoting, empowered women with careers and shit like that, or broken homes and stuff like that. That type of like, Issa Rae, shit with, the shit's not, can't find a functional relationship type of shit. That's what they push, and so it's like, I don't want the brother to feel like I'm attacking him, because I'm not. I just don't think that, regardless of whether you Hotep or whether you are, a middle of the roader, you know what I'm saying? I just don't think that it's a good idea to put black women out there. And I already know that, it's going to cause problems across the board, not just on the middle of the roader side. It's going to cause problems across the board, but see, a lot of these brothers, and this is why I have my strong criticisms against, the black Hoteps with the red, black and green, is because, see, if you're not trying to do anything, if you're not trying to control the economic landscape of your community when it comes to, businesses and vertical structures and black male power hierarchies, if you're not trying to do that, then, a black woman, out there with a white rifle, who's then going to have the mindset of, well, I was putting in the work just like you. When you go and try to get her to do something, that's not going to come up, because you're not doing anything. So therefore, you're not trying to get her to do anything or cooperate with anything that you haven't established, whether individually or at the collective level. So then when you try to get women to, because they're the ones that are birthing children, they're the only ones that can breastfeed, okay? When you're trying to get them to play that more traditional role in times of peace, you can't get them to do that. Then they want to buck the shit, and then they want to go out there and start talking about, being strong, independent. Quiet as is kept, this whole strong, independent woman concept is indeed a Eurocentric concept that they specifically only promote to the black community. Notice they don't have a whole bunch of shows where they out here promoting, strong, independent white women. They don't promote that shit. But they make sure that shit gets funneled into the black community. So, and yes, I know they have shows where they make white men, look like a doofus and look like, he doesn't know what's going on. And I know that goes on. I've seen the MGTOWs, complain about that. But pound for pound, on no level is role reversal and broken homes promoted to the white community like it's promoted to the black community. I just recognize, I'm like, it's a little hard to sit there and talk about patriarchy when you got women out there with rifles on the front line. When you see the Muslim women and, the Kurdistani women and shit like that, and women in Yemen, and they picking up rifles, you know why they picking up rifles? Because they men are dead. That's why. Because their husbands or brothers died, or they were slaughtered, or whatever. That's why they don't have a choice. They don't have a choice. The men are not out there like, oh yeah, chick, go pick up this. No, they get handed a rifle because your father is dead, your brother is dead, and your cousin is dead. So you're the only one left to defend the kid because they sacrificed their lives for whatever they're trying to protect, their community. I just know that this shit ends up being a problem later on, and I'm saying, even the women that are on the middle of the roadside, the colorism crybabies, the hypergamous women and all that other stuff, even those women will use this photo as their argument about why, they're not subscribing to patriarchy, black patriarchy from the middle of the roaders. Even though you ain't even on that shit. You ain't even trying to present that shit. But they'll grab that photo and be like, see, ladies, and this is what black men are doing. And this is what black men out here, they got black women on the front lines. And we're trying to get black women to be feminine. And they say they want feminine women. And they say they want hypergamous women. And blah, 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 blah. Right? But this is what they're doing, right? The only reason they like black women with natural hair is because it's low maintenance, because they don't want to pay for a black woman to get her hair done. And they don't want to pay for a black woman to be beautified. And so these broke, dusty, low maintenance, having ass black men, that's the only reason why they want black women out there with natural hair. And then on top of that, they want us to be their mules, enslaved for them. But they don't elevate us in the media. They don't thirst us. They don't promote us. And that's why, ladies, see, look at this photo. That's why you don't need to be out here supporting black men. Right? Literally intentionally conflating two different populations of black men in order to make their argument. Again, I don't agree with black women being out there on the front lines. I don't agree with a black woman holding a rifle. If I have a woman, do I want her to go to the range with me? Sure I do. Will I take her to the range with me? Sure I will. You know what I'm saying? Like if push comes to shove, you know what I'm saying? And there's 4 intruders in the house and she knows how to use a rifle. You know what I'm saying? Fuck it, pick it up, shit. We outnumbered, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, at that point, but it's not something that I don't want her to be in that position. If she's got to pick up a rifle, that means I didn't do my job. That's how I look at it. If she's got to pick up her gun and be out there, I'm not doing my job as a man. Now, if that's too sexist or Eurocentric for you, so be it, to all the hoteps out here. Okay. But, when we're running around trying to claim that, we're men just like any other group of men, but then we always seem to have these situations where our women are doing more than any other race of women out here, that's a fucking problem. That's a fucking problem. How can you claim to be on par or exceeding the level of other men when your women are doing more than other women do? Right? And then to just add to the confusion, then you get people that jump up and they start talking about how, well, actually black men are more men than other men because they're not sexist like these other groups and they believe in egalitarianism and da-da-da-da-da. And see, the problem is that you're subscribing to a Eurocentric view of how people should be oriented and blah, 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 blah. And then, right? And so then that becomes a big, fat, dumbass argument. Right. So you're Eurocentric if you don't want black women to be on the front lines. And you're also Eurocentric if you're operating on the idea that that black women shouldn't be on the front lines and you're not giving them the space and the freedom to be, you know, your equal or to be on some feminist shit. Because clearly, you know, we don't operate in the same orientation as the European. That's what makes us African. So anything that even looks like what white folks is doing is Eurocentric. You know what I'm saying? And see, this is the problem with black people's identity. You know, that whole chain of legacies and history and religion and culture being stripped away from us. Because truth be told, none of us know what the fuck is going on. And the only blueprint and model that we had was what Europeans were doing in America, which pretty much at this point, the whole world has fucking, you know, followed. Arguably, I would say that it's universal, that this is the orientation. Thousands upon years, this is the orientation. It's always been that way. Men go out, they do the hunting and the gathering, they take on the risk, and women, you know, raise the children. It's always been like that. But for some reason, you know, we go with this, throw the baby out with the bathwater. We're trying to be anti-European, you know, to the point that, you know, properly oriented nuclear families in this country, nuclear black families, somehow must be shunned. And then we got to bring in all this goofy shit. LGBT, you know, QRXYZ and friggin' man, woman, man, all these backwards orientations, putting black women on the front lines, give her a rifle too, egalitarianism and all this other stuff. And then people want to say it works. And I'm like, where does it work? How, Sway? How does this fucking work? Where is this working? You know, and then people want to, you know, play, you know, freaking experimental lab rat with black culture and black family structure and black orientation and just completely ignoring, you know, all of the casualties, you know, and consequences of all this experimenting, because children are being born out of all these situations. Children are going out of all these situations, of all these, you know, these experimental relationships with all these different type of orientations. And then when it fails, they say, fuck it, you know. And guess who's here? Guess who's still out here? That's right, black children who now don't have a stable foundation, don't have two parents working together, you know, for their success. And then they got to go out there and they got to compete with all these other races of kids that are getting 100% of the support of their parents. And then we wonder why black kids is out here failing and why they're out of control and why they're out there rioting in the streets and why they're out there stealing from the Nike store. Then we want to sit there and wonder why. You know, like, this is so difficult to approach because everybody has their own orientation. And if you come in from a different orientation and you criticize their orientation, they'll claim the ultimate is just say he's Eurocentric. He's a Negropian. I mean, that's all that has to be said. Dismissed. And that's the end of it. And that's on all sides. Hell, even the fucking, as we talked about, the hypergamous women are struggling because you got the For Harriet clan and Aisha clan, you know, they over there, you know, everything is Eurocentric that is, you know, traditionally oriented and high heels is makeup is Eurocentric, you know, hosiery is Eurocentric, you know, their skirts are Eurocentric. I mean, every fucking thing is Eurocentric. Traditional households is Eurocentric. And I'm like, you know what? Fine, cool. You want to be on this bullshit? Cool. But I better not motherfucking hear you complaining later on about what you're not receiving that clearly comes from patriarchal orientation. The very structure that you labeled as Eurocentric and said everybody should reject. All of a sudden, and now you want to complain about all the shit that you're not receiving. And I'm so sick of people trying to play this, have their cake and eat it too. And get the best of all worlds, where they want to have this sort of egalitarian situation where black men do all the building and the maintaining and the protecting and the providing, just like other patriarchal communities, but yet women have final say. I'm like, bitch, get the fuck out of my face with that bullshit. That's not going to happen. That is not going to happen. It is, as anything in the world, it is an exchange. Just like the situations with employees and employers. The employer says, I'm willing to pay this much. The employee says, I'm willing to, work for this much. If they can't come to an agreement, they don't need to be together. It's real simple. It's real simple. They don't need to be together. You see? But I'm just saying, I already know that the hoteps will come through. Brother, what you talking about, brother? See, the problem is you have a Eurocentric orientation. There ain't nothing wrong with our black queens being out there, brother. Ain't nothing wrong. See, the problem is you looking through the lens of a white man. When I look at a black woman, I see my counterpart. I see my equal. I see the womaniverse. I see the original woman. And black women, they'll be sitting on the sidelines and they'll be co-signing that shit like a motherfucker. Even women who claim to be hypergamous or claim to be feminists, because it sounds good and it makes them feel good, yes, queen, they'll be sitting there, they'll be co-signing that shit like a motherfucker. But then once we get down to some real world shit, you know what I mean? And then they find out that the dude doesn't want to take them on dates or wine and dine them or expects them to go Dutch and 50-50 and shit. As soon as that shit plays out and the women out there like, well, when I was dating this white guy, I didn't have to pay for nothing. And that's because black men are so cheap and they're so dusty and they're so this and they're so that. I'm like, whoa, bitch. You was over there just last week, talking about, fist in the air, black queen, original woman, Afrocentric this, Afrocentric that, that's right, black queen, Zulu warrior, that's right, Queen of Sheba, Cleopatra, I know it, You was over there co-signing all that shit. Now that you realize that there's some drawbacks to that shit, now all of a sudden, instead of acknowledging like, hey, I was co-signing this bullshit and I didn't know, I was totally wrong. Ladies, we gotta reevaluate. No, it turns into evil black men are the problem. Again, everything is always cool until people hit that speed bump. You notice that? That's the shit that pisses me off. That's why I go on rants and shit online. You know what I'm saying? Like, again, you want to be the leader? You want to be in charge? Well, I hope you accept the responsibility that comes with it. Okay, you want to be, taken care of and put on a pedestal and all that shit? Well, I hope you realize that, you don't get to call the shots in that position. See, if everybody would just accept what comes with whatever they're trying to do, we wouldn't have these problems. But see, the problem is people don't want to accept what comes with certain shit. And then on top of that, they don't want to be honest about what they really want. And then they come, then they come and at the, the freaking fourth quarter, or the 11th hour, 30 seconds on the clock, then they want to file a complaint and want everything to drastically change because they now have buyer's regret and now realize, what the fuck it is. Like, I was listening to Kevin Samuel's video and he had this black woman who was married to a Muslim man, right? And they got divorced because he wanted to marry another woman. And Kev was like, no, you need to stay with him. And I disagree with him on that. I'm like, it's your choice if you want to leave, this, that, and third. And I'm like, this is the problem that I have with her on this topic. I'm like, you didn't do your due diligence. You didn't do your homework. Okay? It is known that in Islam, and I'm not even Muslim, it is known in Islam that, That holy book says that you can take multiple wives. That's no secret. So again, like, why didn't you do all of your research or whatever, or agree to whatever was going to freaking go down? I mean, did y'all have a discussion about that? Or you just assume like, okay, I'm going to convert, I'm going to do all this because I want to be with this man, because I want to have a man, I want to have a baby. And you put on the hijab and you called it good, but you didn't really dive into the religion. Again, I know a Muslim woman, she's Somali. And I'm like, you do realize it says in the Quran that you can grab a green switch and beat a woman to discipline her. You do realize that. So if I smack you in the mouth because, you said something I didn't like, you do realize that Islam is like, yeah, you can do that shit if she's out of pocket. You do realize that. But she want to tell me about how Islam was a religion of peace and all this stuff. I'm like, okay. I'm like, you clearly somebody ain't reading. You ain't reading your own shit. If a woman gets raped, you gotta have 4 witnesses. I'm like, you need to read. But see, black people, they don't like to read. They want to sit there and they just, I want what I want, and I'm gonna go in there and I'm just gonna call it good. It's like that black chick on 90 Day Fiance. You see that shit where she was with Lebanese or Jordanese or some shit like that. Anyway, she get off the plane. She hugging people. He's like, yo, I already told you, no PDA. It's a Muslim country. You can't be doing that. We don't do PDA. Okay? She came. She had liquor in her bag. Yo, that's haram. You can't come on. What are you doing? You know what I'm saying? He was in the car. He was yelling at the bitch. He was cursing her ass. Yalla, yalla, yalla. You know what I'm saying? He was just telling her to come the fuck on. Like, get in the car, bitch. We leaving. Told you not to bring no liquor. You just not respecting my culture. You not respecting this in his broken ass English. I'm like, yeah, see, you not knowing what you sign up for. She talking about, you're not respecting my culture, the way I do things. And I'm like, chick, you in his country. You came there to see him. He didn't come to see you. You know what I mean? He didn't come to the black community and you just sit there, I'm going to light a blunt or whatever. Yeah, this is how we do. You got to respect my culture. That's why you over here, Yeah, you in his house. He not in your house. You know what I'm saying? So, like, it's just, that was my criticism. I'm like, you're not reading all of the fine print. You got to know what you're getting involved in. And I'm saying my thing is like, look, people want to do what they want to do. That's fine. If your relationship works like that, that's fine. Okay, I have a particular orientation, and I would like to be around other men and families that have my same orientation. That's how you have a community. The problem with the black community right now is everybody, all this diversity push, everybody thinks that we can have this community that has all these different factions of people trying to do shit differently. Okay? And so, like, I need to be in a community where if I have a daughter and I'm teaching her to be a respectable woman, that there's a man in the community, my neighbor or so, who's got a son the same age, who's teaching his son to be a responsible man and to respect women and whatnot. That way, when they both come of age, they both have the proper orientation to link up with each other, and both, we can pass on our legacies of generational wealth through our children to our grandchildren. And that's how you continue some shit. Okay, but I can't have a situation where, I'm raising a patriarchal son and whatnot, and in the lady next door and the husband next door, they're raising their daughter to be a little feisty, disrespectful, feminist, I can do anything a man can do type of bitch. I can't have that. I got to tell my son, leave that chick alone. And if you got to go over there and you got to get another race of woman because there's so many people in the community that got this ass backwards orientation, so be it. So be it, because nothing positive will come out of that, but more broken homes, because you got two people who are just completely incompatible with one another. And I'm saying if the Hoteps want to go off in the corner somewhere and they want to do the Hotep thing, that's fine. But see, the problem that I have with Hoteps, and I'll say it again, they always broke. They always broke. They don't never had no money. They don't never had no community that looks like some place you want to fucking live. You know what I'm saying? Like, they haven't dealt with the poverty problem because 9 times out of 10 they so anti-money, anti-capitalism, anti-Eurocentric, this, that, and the third, that any type of structure that even remotely mimics the white community in terms of how the economy actually works, they're against it. You know what I mean? So they try to have their, they try to live like Move, the Move organization with John Africa in Philadelphia and whatnot. They try to operate like that. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I don't want you being my neighbors either. I can't be coming home and, I'm smelling goat feces and pig feces and shit. And I'm smelling all this methane gas, you know what I mean, as I'm pulling up in the neighborhood because you trying to operate on some off the grid type of shit. You see, I'm like, I can't have that. Are you trying to smoke weed and ganja and everything else, saying it's a part of your religious orientation and it gives you, clarity and allows you to look out of your third eye? I can't have you being my neighbor. Can't have that. As much as we may agree on, black empowerment and all that other stuff, I'm saying, what are you really doing that is empowering black people? What it seems to me is it just seems like you get a bunch of people that go off and they get all magical and then they call it empowerment and say that they're operating outside the confines of the system while within the system. And everything is all gravy until they run into the law, just like happened with the Move organization. You know what I'm saying? My father was in Philadelphia when that shit went down, and he just said point blank, he was like, nah, man, he's like, they had to be handled. He was like, they had to be handled. They were out there yelling out of the loudspeakers, giving all these speeches about the white man and all this other shit, all hours of the night. We got to get up and go to work the next day. And these motherfuckers out there 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, talking about, and the white man, and this, that, and the third, and Mayor Rizzo, and da-da-da-da-da. He was like, man, shut them niggas the fuck up. He's like, they had no consideration for any other black person. They were pulling guns on people, all type of shit. You know what I mean? Like, you couldn't just go up and talk to them and whatnot. They acted like you were the enemy too. So he was just like, nah. He's like, they needed to be dealt with. Not saying that they needed to have a bomb dropped on them like Mayor Good dropped a bomb on their ass. You know what I'm saying? But they needed to be, you can't be doing that shit. People got to go to see. This is the problem with people like, people being radical like that. That's why I said middle of the roaders. I went with Amos Wilson's term because he said that point blank. He said that at the front, at the beginning of the Feel Good History video. Go on YouTube, pull it up. Feel Good History. The video by Amos Wilson. He said it right in there. He was like, he's talking about getting people for the organization and how he needed people to be the treasurer and how he needed people, to basically run the office, for their newspaper and whatnot. And, he said, I tend to do better with the middle of the roaders. Say hot, fiery black nationalists, a special kind of people. And basically what he was saying, if you read between the lines, because he knows the hot, fiery black nationalists, that's his biggest audience. They loved him. But he recognized when it came to their work ethic and when it came to the economical part, that they was on some other shit. Which is why, in my opinion, closer to his death towards 1995, almost just like Martin Luther King, he started talking about magic Afrocentric stuff less and started talking more about money and current events and what was going on in the economy. If you listen to Amos Wilson's videos, the closer he gets towards his death, the more he's talking about money, finances, economics, and global markets and the incursion of other groups into the black community. When you listen to some of his older videos, you know what I mean? He's up there talking about the mindset and Afrocentric mindsets and orientations for the children, which is important. Don't get me wrong. That's important to have. But see, the problem is a lot of black people, they dive into having the Afrocentric mindset and they stay there. Or they dive into having a revolutionary mindset and they stay there. You know, they're all about mobilize. I mean, I'll put it to you like this. Grandmaster Jay can get however many black people to show up at, an event, to go out there and march and act like they about to go out there and fight some white folks, right? And protest and have a show of force and everything else. That's the easy part. That shit is easy. But try to get black men, to show up, that many black men to show up at a HTML seminar on how to learn how to make a website, or how to learn a free class for JavaScript or Python, or any of these other, code writing seminars. And we'll make it for free. It's free, niggas, free. I bet you wouldn't get a fraction of them to show up. I know a black man who tried to start a bank and it failed. It failed because the other individuals, they just didn't want to do it. They didn't want to do it. Too much work. You see? And that's the part where white supremacy, when people want to go, white supremacy, that's our dirty laundry. Don't get me wrong, white supremacy keeps doing what it does in the background and everything else like that. Again, things that tend to be inferior, as Dr. Hendrik Clark said, they tend to fall to the bottom, right? You don't need to put up barriers and walls and deny people and red line and all that other shit. So it's not like you don't have black people that are out here fighting to get to the next level, because if they weren't, then you wouldn't have white people who felt it necessary to try to create all type of barriers. But I notice when it comes to the Afrocentric, red, black, and green, Hotep brothers, they about them guns, they about that protest, they about them marching. But when it comes to, the race war is over. All right. So, now we got to talk about how we're going to make a living and how we're going to feed the children, right? And how we need to have safe playgrounds and safe parks, and how we're going to stop the violence in Chicago and create jobs and opportunities and gainful employment, right? And how we're going to send young men off to college and young women off to college to get their degrees so that they can apply those skill sets in the black community, right? Or when we talk about raising kids and, how that dynamic is going to play out with, women and mothers and all that stuff, again, that day-to-day mundane, getting up at 5:30 in the morning so that you can have the kids out the door by 6:15, and then, they getting breakfast, dropping them off at preschool or daycare or fucking, wherever they got to go, their grandmother's house, then getting your ass to work. You know what I'm saying? That's the everyday bustle and hustle. That's every day. Then you got to pick them up, at 3:15 and shit like that. Like, that's every day. You see, that's where, in my opinion, black people fail. Yeah, anybody can show up on a weekend and go do some shit for one day. You know what I mean? But the consistency of everyday work, the boring shit, the mundane shit, it's like that shit doesn't move black people. They're not excited by that. They want to, we want to be out there on some warrior shit every day. Yeah, and fist in the air. And this makes us feel good. And we just stay in a perpetual warrior state. And I'm like, okay, well, what happens when the war is over? How are we going to orient and operate then? When it comes back down to the boring, mundane, everyday fucking task. You're doing the same shit damn near every damn day. Especially if you don't have extra resources where you can't just sporadically say, hey, what are you doing? What time you get off? Oh, you get off at 6? Okay, yeah, we're going to go to the jazz club or whatever. I called your mother. She's going to take care of the kids. We're going to go over here and just splurge on ourselves because, we've been going, 3 weeks straight nonstop. I think we need a break or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But see, if you in poverty, you don't get to take a break. You don't get to, have that time off, which is why you see a lot of the violence and shit that goes on, in the black community, domestically speaking, because people are stressed the fuck out. You know what I'm saying? When you have resources, you can go on that cruise, you can go on that trip, You can take some time off. You can hire a babysitter. You can do all that stuff. You know, like shit. But when you don't have the resources, then you end up with the social problems because, you know, you're burning yourself out. Burnout is a real thing. I don't care what career, I don't care what, you know, whether you're just a family person, you're a stay-at-home mom, stay-at-home dad, whatever. That shit is real. You know, so, you know, these are the things that we never get down to. We just stay in this constant perpetual state of just warring against the machine. And I'm like, first off, people don't even know what total war looks like. Second off, you know, again, people still got to live. They still got to go on with their lives. They still got to raise their kids and raise their families and whatnot. And, you know, personally, I just think a lot of our orientation is just way the fuck off. You know, and I don't know. I just wanted to lay this out. You know, again, I'm not attacking my man. You know, y'all have already known for a long time how I feel about Hoteps. You know, you know, I have the same criticisms, you know, to them as I do many other factions, like the feminist black women, like, you know, the ELs and our beta maleness and the shit that, you know, we scared, you know, to do and, you know, all that, you know, well, I'm comfortable. I got a good job. I'm not out there trying to rock the boat, you know, that type of shit, you know, and then it got criticisms for the street niggas that's out there and, you know, committing all the violence in the community and whatnot. And then want to turn around and talk about it's the white man. Like, so, you know, I'm just saying, I got criticisms for every fucking, and there's no group out here, you know, that can escape criticism. Every group is not, every faction within the black community is doing something wrong or something that they shouldn't be doing. Every group. Now, granted, we can argue whether ones are more detrimental than others, but I'm just saying, nobody's exempt from criticism here. So don't start coming at me, bitching and people being in their feelings and whatnot. What about, get away from me with the what about isms. I've already addressed that. But we need to, what I would like to see is I would like to see there be a general cultural understanding of what we're trying to do and where we're trying to go. And why you can't do this, or this. Okay? Everything else you can play with. Right? Like that's what they did with the Constitution. They wrote the laws in the Constitution and they said everything else that wasn't covered in the Constitution, the states can do whatever they want with that. As long as it doesn't violate the Bill of Rights, the states y'all can have at it. So you want to create regulation on firearms, you can create regulations on firearms. But at the core, it's not supposed to violate the Second Amendment, right? It's not supposed to, right? But we see how the states, you know, they run off and they take the shit too far. You see, it's one of the reasons why you can't, it's like what that black woman said in that video clip that I had a while back, where she said, you know, part of the reason why people don't want to define things is because they might have to live by that which they defined. See, it's beautiful when you get people to actually define things. You know, this is why, you know, they try to, you know, get you to, I'm trying to think like when you're dealing with students that are bad and you get them to write, you know, the contract or what they're not going to do, what they agree not to do anymore. And then if they do it again and you pull out the contract and you're like, well, you signed this. You said right here that you wasn't going to do this right here. You see what I'm saying? It's like, this is what I didn't put this on you. You put this on yourself. You see? But, you know, we really do not like, you know, definitions, you know, and people, you know, they want to go out here and if you really look at it, like people just want to go out here and they want to do whatever they want to do. And they want to have this sort of, you know, freedom or idea of freedom without being obligated to one another. And then they complain that they want a community. I'm like, oh, look, you can't have a community where everybody's doing whatever the hell they want to do and then say that you want a community, a functioning community, because communities are what's the word that I'm looking for? Predicated on there being an obligation to one another, which means that at some time people are going to have to do what they don't want to do, but it needs to be done, because if it doesn't get done, then it causes problems. And see, since everybody's running around, well, I don't want to do what I don't feel like doing, or I don't believe in this and I don't believe in that, then things fall apart. And I'm like, you need to focus on the end game. What is the end game? To have an intact, thriving black community? Okay, well, in order to have that, you have to have people who are at the very least on the same page and have the proper orientation, and then you move from there. But if we can't agree on certain basic elements, then what you see is what you get. And then as soon as something, we come to some bridge of a problem, you end up, you got a room of 10 people and you got 7 out of the 10 people say, well, I don't feel like doing that. You know what I mean? And sooner or later, the last 3 people that are left over, they're going to get tired of carrying the weight for everybody else. Because a lot of times people want to, you'll get the 7 out of 10 people say, well, I don't feel like doing that, or I don't want to do that, but they'll be using the bridge just the same. The other 3 people are holding it up, and other people, well, yeah, you did a nice job, well, let me walk right across. Hey, man. Oh, now you're gonna use it, but you didn't want to support it. You didn't want to help out with it. And so, since you can't say fuck you can't use it, what ends up happening is the 3 people that were left over to actually maintain the structure, eventually they just say fuck it and they just let it deteriorate. And when you look at the conditions of the black community right now, I direct you to a black community nearest you, that's what you see, deterioration. So I'm already made this video long enough. I don't want to go over an hour. So that's all I got to say. That's my video. SWP out.